Everyone, welcome to this Thursday, March 12th meeting of the General Policy Committee of the City of Gainesville. I appreciate everyone being here this afternoon and apologize for being a couple minutes behind. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, we're on to the adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
I will second.
Okay.
However it works.
We have multiple motions and seconds as recorded by the clerk's office. Seeing no further lights, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously with Commissioners Chestnut and Duncan Walker absent. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, we're on to the approval of the minutes with the recommendation the General Policy Committee approve the minutes from the February 26, 2026 meeting.
I move adoption or approval of the minutes from February 26th.
Second. We have a motion and a rapid second. I see no other lights. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously with Commissioners Chestnut and Duncan Walker absent. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, we're on to our discussion item 2026-170, Charter Referendum Interns for the City Commission with the recommendation the General Policy Committee discuss and take any action deemed necessary.
All right. Mr. Attorney or whomever, someone should, do you have anything on this, Mr. Attorney, or we haven't discussed before?
Mr. Mayor, nothing additional. I know an issue came up within the last month or so again, and it's an issue that comes up every few years that focused on interns that directly report to commissioners. And at that time, we, consistent with past council, we provided a really detailed memorandum, perhaps too detailed in some ways, but just an effort to be fully explanatory of the issues involved that discussed challenges with interns in general, dealing with the Fair Labor Standards Act all the way through to adopted policies of the city with interns, and the fact that we do have interns that serve the city. They're paid interns under our policies. And then the larger issue about our charter restrictions dealing with commissioners not having administrative authority or the ability to direct employees. And I think that's what my understanding is the direction of this conversation is going to, is should those charter restrictions be amended? And there's a whole wealth of policy concerns there. As we try to make clear from our office, we don't set policy and we don't advocate policy or even enforce policy, frankly. We try to inform commissioners as they're developing policy, but at the end of the day, that's what people have elected you to do. So I think that's where we are now. It's being brought forward for you all to discuss in the public way, the only way in which you can discuss these things is to whether or not there is an avenue to have satisfactory intern or support relationships with employees and the City Commission, given our current framework of our charter, or if the charter should be put forward by referendum to the electorate as to whether they want to change that or not.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Attorney. And I'll just say before we really roll into things that I've been here in a couple of capacities since 2017, and we have seen intern opportunities come and go in various ways, none of which ever make a whole lot of sense. We did have a policy department that was primarily fueled by interns. It was a good program, but people are, I won't even say often, I will say always surprised when they ask me if my office has internships, and I say, no, that isn't something the City of Gainesville can put together. It is uncommon, I would say. So it is also a surprise to most folks that none of us have staff that is directly responsible to us as individual commissioners of the mayor. Whether that is proper or not is something for us to discuss and then for the community to discuss. But it's not real common among cities our size. So it is something that we should talk about, and it's been kicked around as an idea for the entire time that I've worked in this building. So I think it's fair to have a discussion about it, and we'll start that discussion with Commissioner Book.
Well, I think, Mr. Mayor, I probably won't start a discussion. I'll just say that this current iteration of discussion I brought up because I felt like there may be benefit in the way that we have internships and unique employment opportunities that really develop people for the future. And certainly part of that is developing relationships with public policy. And while we may get benefit if there's internships at, for example, the city commission level, the real benefit is really we're developing future leaders, right? We want folks who have engagement in public policy. They may seek or aspire to a public office, and the fact that they get the ability to work with us is good. So we may get work also out of it. I thought it just might be helpful to hear from, thank you, Mr. Attorney, and I appreciate the fact that you drafted that because I know that was big due to discussion between you and I thank you very much for that, was what we're currently doing. What's the state of what we're currently doing? That might be the manager, and then maybe what thoughts there might be about a potential internship, and that would be you, Madam Clerk. So I think that probably would be the best, is kind of get the full picture from our city leaders, and that may help inform us of where we may want to go.
Mr. Manager, do you have anything you want to add? Or?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not really. I mean, outside of I think what has already been mentioned in this meeting, and I think in the past time that we talked about this, we do have an internship job description in our job descriptions. Several departments do fund paid interns and have that as part of their regular departmental budgets. There's not a it's not necessarily consistent across all departments that we have interns. It's some departments have a longer history of having internships. All of them are paid. Importantly, the interns that we've had, I think whether they're the ones that we have currently, the Civigators, they are all paid interns through the University of Florida. The interns that we had before that were part of the policy team were also paid interns through the Bob Graham Center and through the clerk's office, and that's the current state of affairs, if you will, from that perspective.
Very good, thank you. Madam Clerk, do you want to fill in?
So in the past, we had the policy research program that was overseen by the policy research administrator. We had, I think, at its height, they would have 6 to 8 interns. When I took over as city clerk, we had 4 interns. And we still have the space. We still have, computers and things that they can use. So depending on whether you all want to bring that policy research back, that is always going to be an option. So I know the city attorney has outlined in his memo, how that's supposed to look. And, given the desire I'm hearing for interns, that would be a way we could do it without having to go through the expense of a charter amendment. So it would be dependent on the city commission.
Very good, thank you. And to be clear, to my knowledge, nobody's talking about implementing something immediately. The point is that we can't do that right now, that it is not something that is possible to do. So if we wanted to create administrative support that is answerable to an individual commissioner or to the mayor, that isn't possible right now under the current system. We have executive assistants that work for the clerk's office that don't work for us. And generally speaking, that works wonderfully. But it does create inconsistencies in direction. And again, it is generally a surprise to folks in the community when they learn that, no, my system does not work for me. not a common thing in the working world, but that is the situation that we have developed into through the language of our charter. Many cities do have the ability for elected officials to have direct support that is managed directly by them. Do we want to individually manage folks? I don't know that I want to, but I can't right now under the current system. So that's kind of the point. We're in what I think is a unique situation, and I find myself more and more saying, when Gainesville finds itself in a unique position, it is generally not a good position. So I don't want anybody to take any of this personally. It doesn't mean that our EA staff is not doing a good job. They are. But we should consider ways to make ourselves less unique, perhaps, as we move forward. And that's what General Policy Committee is supposed to be about, is having discussions like this. Commissioner Eastman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think that's an important point. If we're talking about the charter, which of course has got brought up, I'm looking at the city attorney's report here where he specifically cites 2.10, which then kind of has me zero in on that, which is a very strict provision. I mean, I've looked at a bunch of city charters related to how these work, and there's a more backup for when we had our public policy research team look through other staffing within other cities. Nearly every city with the council manager form of government has some kind of separation between the council and the administrative duties of the city manager, public works, that sort of thing. We seem to be unique in having very, very strict language related to, personnel staff. The level of the language to the point where we can't even have interns, right? It says that we can, except for the purpose of inquiry, the commission and its members, including the mayor, must deal with employees of the city solely through their respective charter officers, and neither commission nor any commissioner, including the mayor, may give orders to any subordinate of the charter officers, either publicly or privately, or we are guilty of a second-degree misdemeanor under the charter. I've tried to look into other cities. I even got on the phone with some other executive assistants in other cities who are very open about what they do and how they do it. I'm not really sure what the right process is going forward. What I do know is that the charter it's the constitution of the city, right? And I think the question is as we grow as a city and as we continue to remain part-time commissioners, at some point there's likely to be a time when we're going to want to have more say as people that would extend out those legislative duties. And I think that we should allow a future commission to determine that. In the short term, this is about interns, but I can't imagine asking for a charter amendment where we say we would like to have an internship program, please. That seems silly. I think we should be looking down the horizon as we are a growing city and saying, what would a future commission want to do through the standard policy processes? And I think that'd be very reasonable, and I think our community would probably be comfortable with it. But that is something we would put on the ballot and see where they are with it. But I can go back to the actual language and all of that. I came up with some language on how you could adjust 2.10 in the narrowest of ways, which is that it just allows by ordinance the ability for a future commission to determine an internship program or a structure that's not necessarily even answering to us, but could still flow through the city clerk's office, but would be able to give direction in specific ways, or have many cities are not a binary system. Tallahassee's on one side, but then I've spoken to other cities that have, it's kind of more of a hybrid system. We are definitely on a different side where everyone is under the clerk, though obviously we do have people that work for the clerk and do things on our behalf, right? And so, I think having that be clear in the charter makes a lot of sense, and that was something that I've tried to find some solutions for. I'd like to hear from my fellow commissioners as to what they think the right way forward is.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Eastman. Commissioner Engel.
So I realize that the charter language itself doesn't speak to an internship program or anything like that, but it seems to be kind of a driving thing behind it. So I would say I've got some concerns about that. One is if we were talking about bringing in basically an intern that is going to work for commissioners, I'm very, very opposed to unpaid internships. If somebody's here and doing work, I think they need to be paid for it. Which says to me, if we're bringing in people that are going to be paid for this work, with the same budget that we've got, are we looking at getting rid of EA positions? Because I've also got a lot of concerns about replacing bargaining unit career employees with somebody who's coming in to get some work experience and learn a new idea. I think there's a lot of value you get from people that are here and have known the system and have worked in the city for a long time. And I don't think you can replace that by bringing these other people in. And I don't know that we've got the budget for new employees and keeping the EAs that we have. And to cut, like I said, to what are good, solid union jobs in the city of Gainesville in exchange for that, I think was a bad trade. I'm not interested in doing that. Also, like when I think of legislative aides, like you see in Tallahassee, those are typically someone that person knows, right? Well, I know one of the things we looked at is potentially sending interns out to sit for us at different events and represent their commissioner in the community. So I don't know if we would be expected to sit in on the hiring process as commissioners, so that we were bringing somebody in that we were comfortable sending out in those situations. But I think that opens up a lot of questions too, in that City of Gainesville's got a hiring process. We throw the net out, we cast it wide, make sure that we're getting the right applicants, do all those type of things. And that's, I can see where that would be a strange dynamic for somebody who's also supposed to be your personal representative. And technically, my EA does not work for me. She works for the clerk's office, but I feel like that is a big technically. Like I've never called up and been like, hey, I need this. And the answer been like, I don't work for you, I work for Kristen. I mean, like that's never a thing that's happened. So while it technically is true that they don't work for me, like it's only that technicality. Anytime I've asked my EA for something, it's come through fine. I do think it makes sense to have some intern possibilities here. And I really like the model I had heard of, like we kind of used before, where we've got some people that are really interested in learning about policy and how those things work, and having a policy department that we can go to and be like, we've got, some upcoming votes that we're going to look at on parking regulations and towing. I'd like to have a policy department we could go to and ask questions on that, or tell them I'm trying to form a policy and how we would go in that. I think that makes a lot of sense. But I don't think that I think we've got the opportunity for internships without necessarily attaching them to one commissioner. And then also, like, I don't know if I've got a full week's worth of work for an intern every week, and I don't want to be in a position where we've got to make work for these guys. Where you've got something where they can do the work that needs to be done instead of necessarily being attached to one commissioner. I think that may be a better way to look than necessarily attaching them to one commissioner. I will say right now, I think we've got a pretty good city commission. I don't think anybody would take advantage of it or use it, weirdly or anything like that. But that's not always been the case. Like, having somebody that you can bring in, kind of on your behalf, and then I think there has been the potential for abuse there, and I don't think we've always had a commission that wouldn't slide into weird spots like that. I think having interns that are obviously going to talk to each other about things that report directly to a commissioner, you got like weird sunshine stuff that can go on. I think it works in Tallahassee. When I say Tallahassee, I mean the legislature, not the city of Tallahassee, because like they're exempt from a lot of that stuff. Whereas we've got to be really careful on how we're communicating with each other. And I'm thinking like my intern and your intern sharing lunch together and talking about what their commissioners are doing gets pretty close to that. As I said, I've got a lot of concerns about just an intern program where they're reporting to me specifically, as opposed to an intern that's coming in here to learn how policy works and those other things. I'm very concerned about putting career bargaining unit jobs in jeopardy and replacing them with, an intern or volunteer situation. That's kind of where I am on this. I'm not sure I necessarily see the need to have someone report directly to me if all the things I would get out of having somebody report directly to me are already being taken care of. That's where I'm at.
Thank you, Commissioner Engel. Commissioner Willets.
I'm sorry. My brain's dead here. Thank you, Commissioner. So this, I see the usefulness of having people who directly report to commissioners so that it's clear what their job is. Our current EA situation, it is we cannot direct them to do anything. I mean, I think we kindly ask, that's how I do it, like, could you do this, and that is something that technically they can run past the city clerk to do anything for us. And it is, I will say it has felt overly restrictive. It has 100% restricted my ability to do everything I thought and hoped and dreamed for in this position, because I have to ask permission to ask the person who's here to help me. Person who is here, full-time, I'm here part-time, and they're here to help me, let's say half-time, kind of half to me, half to someone else, but I can't really ask them to do things I want them to do for me. Not because those things are illegal in any other way, besides the fact that just, the charter says we can't direct them. And so I've experienced the frustration. I was warned about it before I came into office and heard from past commissioners the nature of the situation does not help. And I see the other cities that have it. I do have a question about, because Tallahassee is the one that comes to mind most, just because it's kind of similar size. It's not that far away. We hear about it in the news, partly because the news is in Tallahassee. Does Tallahassee, and I don't know who can answer, it's probably Madam Clerk, is their clerk a charter officer in Tallahassee? Do you
They're
know?
a city clerk treasurer.
Okay, but it's a charter officer that's appointed by the, because in a situation where the clerk wasn't independent, then I could really see the need for a legislative aid, right? Because then everything is under the city manager. But I've been a pretty firm proponent of keeping an independent clerk. I do not foresee a budget thing in the next year or two where it's going to be like, oh yeah, we have a bunch of budget to hire a bunch of people. And so I think this is more about talking about the intern situation, but at the same time enabling future commissions to do potentially something in the future. I don't see the budget, how we would suddenly have the budget to have a bunch of more employees. But I also don't think it would be this one-to-one shift, even if it happened with the clerk's office, because you still have to have almost a full-time person to manage advisory boards. We have 27 advisory boards. You need a full-time person. If there were these legislative aides, these support staff that directly answer, the clerk's office is going to need someone just to almost liaise with 7 of them. So I just don't imagine a world where this budgetarily it is not definitely is not a one-for-one swap in my mind. It can't be, because more people liaising takes more staff on the clerk side, or takes some staff. It's not a one-for-one. So and because of that, I don't foresee this as something that we can whip together on that kind of the legislative aids. But in a future where the budget is a little more forgiving, I would like to be able to enable future commissions, because it's probably not going to be me that ever gets to see that, but future commissions. The interns, I have similar concerns to Commissioner Engel about paid versus unpaid. As much as I would like to get, people who just, a student, someone who just wants a little taste, a little, kind of peek behind the curtain kind of thing, which we can do for individual people. The students often want an internship, whether to get credit or whatever, or they just want to really feel like they are part of something. I lean towards this idea of paid internships for sure. So it doesn't displace, it doesn't let people do work for free. But the thing is, on the flip side, if it is work that we have been banned from, work that needs to be done, but we are banned from directing, it's not something that a current paid city employee can do. I mean, they just can't. So it is work. I think it is work that needs to be done. I think legislative aids would be highly useful to do things at the direction of a commissioner, so they can build kind of what they're working on, and so that there is no that they are for that person, instead of being split between two. Because when they're split between two, they are the person who knows really what's going on with 2 different commissioners. So I think that is one struggle with EAs when they are assisting 2 different commissioners, because they're the person with both of that knowledge. But the idea about who gets to talk to what, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the city manager gets to appoint their right-hand people, literally left and right. They get to appoint special advisors, COO, CFO, office management budget, is that a hired position you have to send it out? O and B is, right? Or can that be a point, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, those are positions that we typically do through a, open job process with, with soliciting applications.
okay, but again, obviously, you get to decide. A manager gets to decide all those, So like, has a lot of ability to pick who is helping them, most closely, most intimately, most the brain trust. Like, we do, commission doesn't, appoint those for y'all for the charters, and so like it would help to have some say over like who you're going to work with, who you work well with, the kind of skills. And I think we've gotten to a place where perhaps the employees are picked very specifically for a written job description, but we have other interests and wants and needs, or we would like to have things taken care of. And we certainly aren't picking people for those kind of perhaps unspoken or unwritten or at this point precluded by the charter. Well, of course that doesn't make it into the, the job description and hiring process because it's precluded by the charter. The job description doesn't say, takes direction from city commissioners. Well, that's not a description of a job or something you're looking for. So I lean towards the idea that I like the idea of paid interns, the ability, the possibility, and I just don't see any time soon though that we could possibly really, in essence, afford to have 7 legislative aides. But it's not a crazy idea. Other cities do this because you get to a certain size. I think it would work better with only 5 commissioners and 5 legislative aides. I think that is a more natural fit as opposed to 7 and 7 because that is a lot of different people. But the idea of being able to send someone on my behalf to meetings. So we have literally city advisory boards and commission and meetings that are at the exact same time. Times when things like real important decisions are made, perhaps it's not a commissioner making the decision, but whatever the task force for the school board, I forget what that's called, the joint, where there's
It's the Planning
Yes.
Advisory Council.
Planning Advisory Council is one where I don't even try to know when all those things are happening because I know I can't attend them all. But if a person who could be assigned to go out to that, then I would be able to send somebody and they would be able to take notes or go with a message or, that kind of thing. So I could see a lot of utility in this in a city our size, particularly as we grow bigger. And I don't know if it's just because our constituents and voters, they really they want commissioners kind of everywhere. That's just a culture I think that's built up over decades. It's no one person's fault, and it's not their fault. They expect this really accessible, but they're also used to accessing legislative aids for the state legislature, where there is a person local they can call and they can, oh yeah, this is a person, and they see them out at events and they understand that. Because to Mayor's point, people are shocked when I say like, oh no, there's nobody, no one helps me, no one answers me. Someone said, oh, you got elected, so you're like gonna have to hire somebody to be your assistant. Nope, not at all. So yeah, I lean towards saying that this is a kind of roughly a good idea, but I just don't see a world where we're going to be able to afford seven aides. Like, I don't see that anytime in the budget soon. So that makes me a little more comfortable that this is not a switch that would suddenly. I just don't think we, have the budget for it. But I'm also a little afraid. The example I use most is Tallahassee. I would argue Tallahassee, love them to death, but they have a dysfunctional commission mayor system. Like, something about that does not. We have a far more harmonious, but maybe there's just more conflict because those individual commissioners have the power to bring impactful legislation up forward, and it's going to be more impactful because it's not just 7-0 votes that get brought forward, mostly through the effort of city manager or city attorney. Instead, they are bringing forward, and it's a little rougher. One concern I will also say is that the city if we don't like this idea, then we really need to lean back and thinking of the policy research position, because having that in the clerks, I think, is really useful because commissioners can't talk to each other, and city manager or city attorney can't. They're really not supposed to daisy chain any of those messages along. But the moment a commissioner has something, let's say it's a bold and innovative something, suddenly all the other commissioners sort of know what's on the radar, or city charters can start advocating to discourage policy ideas before it can even get out of the commissioner's hands. If the only people we rely on are the staff of the attorney or the manager, as opposed to relying on the staff of the clerk, because the clerk's job is to serve the city, but to service the commission as well. And so I like that, because those policy ideas, to a large degree, stay there until they're a little better cooked and, a little better formulated. So part of this is making sure the commission has the power to do what they need to do. And that involves, because I will say, a personal opinion, I don't think we've been nearly bold and innovative enough with some of our stuff the past several years. And I think one of the reasons that it suffers is because commissioners don't have people that they can do this with one-on-one, go through the iterations, get the community feedback, have newsletters, have really active social media. And AID would enable all of those things to happen and help. So I think it would be really beneficial, and give more of the power back to the commission to make the policies, to formulate and make, and then let staff and charters implement those policies as is their job. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Commissioner Duncan Walker.
Mr. Mayor, I want to say that, obviously right off the top, my brain immediately goes to any type of costs to implement this idea. I think everybody obviously would love to have more help, and even love to have somebody, quote unquote, go out and be able to represent us. But I have even a question, and I'm actually glad to see Laura here, because it may be an HR question. How dare you get comfortable, Laura? But I wonder how much flexibility we already have in the way that things are to allow for EAs to be able to represent us. Is that explicitly something that is prohibited? I don't know. Laura, is that a question for you, or is that a question that Kristen can answer? Can EAs go out and quote unquote represent us, sit in our stead, go to meetings in the public, take notes? Is that something that can be written into a job description? Is that permissible?
So good morning, Mayor, not good morning, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How dare I reverse the day, I apologize. Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Laura Gretz, HR Director. So I'm going to give a lawyerly answer that the city attorney may giggle at. It depends. So can you? Yes, I think I don't have the job description directly in front of me for the EAs in the clerk's office. If that's something that's desired, if it's not already in the job description, we can talk about whether that's something that's permissible. I welcome other charter officer input on this. I would caution the commission to be very clear about the expectation for an intern or any employee for that matter to go out and represent you at a meeting. It's one thing to go to a meeting and take notes and listen to conversation and report back. But if statements get made that you have to keep in mind, that will represent you as an individual, it will represent the organization. So you have to weigh that with the risk and really thinking carefully about, is that something that you would want to pursue?
Yeah, I'm not thinking of an EA literally making statements. I think for an elected, the people who elected you expect your statement, and only if you had explicitly given them something to say should they say something. But I wanted to ask that, and thank you, because you have answered the question. There is at least a little bit of leeway to have someone go out into the public sphere as your representative. The policy creation piece, one of the highlights of my first term here was just that. And that incredible team of young people who were very responsive. I know when I called on them a number of times to do work, the research was at a very high level, and I was always satisfied with what I got back. And so I'm actually confident in our ability to do that work in-house. I just wonder what that would look like. I'm a little more inclined to allow staff to have a conversation about how they can bring that back if it's possible, because obviously some concerns off the top, and I think everybody that I've heard so far may have mentioned this. What does this cost? What does it actually cost? Because we can dream as big as we want to, but if it does not make fiscal sense, then we can't do it. But if we can find a way to rearrange things now in the clerk's office, who I know I've had conversations with about how we could possibly get the policy team back in effect, I wonder what that would look like. And I would love to give them the opportunity to tell us how that could happen, if at all possible. Maybe if the budget in any way could be accommodating. For me, it would be looking at how the EA's responsibilities could be expanded, and you get 1 or 2 or 3 more of them. Between what is allowable lawfully through the HR policies, I think we might be able to at least get close to what most of us want. But I would need to hear that. And so I would actually have to have another kind of conversation where staff actually had the opportunity to bring us something back. And just in the interest of complete transparency, I would be concerned about the managerial piece. What is the expectation of a committee? I know other people are doing it in other places. That's fine. But what then becomes our job description and our responsibility to the legislative aid? As part-time individuals who come in on varying schedules, how does that really work? I need a little more information and knowledge and awareness about that. I know that my life is very full on all ends, and frankly, I don't know that I want that added responsibility. So I find ways when I need to get things done by working with volunteers in the community. And I have to say this too, I have never had the opportunity or the experience up to this point where I couldn't call Kristen and ask her for something, and our team didn't get it done at a very high level. And I've never been able to ask my EA, any of them that I've had thus far, and they didn't do something. So while I totally understand the idea of being able to direct, it's not so much of a concern for me because I've always been able to have whatever my needs were addressed. So the money piece and making sure that we kind of make good use of what we already have in place and envision how we can expand it really are where I fall. I fall there. I feel like a future commission, I don't want to make a decision for a future commission, to be honest. I think a future commission can make their own decisions. They can decide what their priorities are, and they can move forward. If they want legislative aids, they should have that conversation. I wouldn't dream of making a decision for another commission. If I was going to make a decision, it would be for this existing body to benefit us. I think I'm going to conclude with that, because I don't think the other questions that I had initially, like what are potential salaries, are even an issue for me at this point. That's not where my head is. I'm just thinking about how we can make do with what we have, expand it. Perhaps our clerk's office is willing to rearrange or restructure some things in that office because they hear the needs that we have. We want a little more flexibility. We want some representation. We want policy. I'd love to give them the opportunity to show us what that might look like, show us what the cost of that might be, because I believe we would be getting ourselves into a serious expense. I know we would, trying to bring in 7 legislative aids. I'll conclude with my comments for now.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Duncan Walker. So I want to follow up on a few thoughts there. First of all, I completely agree with you, Commissioner Duncan Walker, that I don't know that I want to get into the business of managing someone's time chart. And the things that go with that. Commissioner Ingold, I don't think I have not seen any written proposal or had any discussion with anybody outside the commission or anything like that of replacing positions. And I would assume that if it were possible to have direct assistance, that they would be under the bargaining unit also. I don't know why we wouldn't do that. There's no reason that couldn't be the case. To speak to logistics, before I speak to logistics, let me say that I am thinking of this as creating opportunity for a city that has more than 200,000 people living in it. We have 151,000 people now. In a very short time, before we know it, probably not while we're sitting up here, but before we know it, Gainesville is going to have more than 200,000 people in it. It just is. And we're not going to expand the commission, I don't think. That's a whole other kettle of fish. I do think that 7 members, 4 district, 2 at large, and a mayor works really well to meet the needs of the community. I think that we're able to serve better than the 5-member boards that we work with. But what we're talking about is paving a path for commissions to have the tools they need when this is a position that expects more of people. Because a city of 200,000 people is going to expect more from the people they elect, the same way that the community expects more from us than it did 15 years ago in a city of 110,000 people. So that's what I'm interested in, is not necessarily doing anything for right now, but for clearing a path for decisions they might want to make. Because right now, today, if we said we want to hire some different situation that would involve some direct management, we cannot do that. We're forbidden from doing that. It is out of our hands to even deal with. In any situation, we would be looking at whether it's now or whether it's 10 years from now, changing the charter for something like this, you're looking at about 18 months between the time the commission says, yes, let's take this to the people to talk about, and the time that a budget could be considered to implement something different. Because you got to decide in the spring to get something on the ballot, late spring at the latest, to get something on the ballot for November, and that by that time you are past the current budget year, and you're looking at the following budget year after that. So there's an 18-month or so buffer to doing anything or to making it possible to do anything. And I don't know, I can pretty much foresee that we're not ready to go hire a bunch of stuff yet. So I don't see this as a budget thing, but as a clearing the path for opportunities thing for later in this commission's time or for future commissions when there are a lot more people living in the community. That's the way I think about it and approach it. Not as I want to get somebody hired right now kind of thing, because that just isn't possible. Nor, again, as everyone has said, do we have the budget available to do that right now. The reason we don't have policy interns now, that department, is because we can't afford it. I mean, that is the reason, because there was a director, which Mr. Folston was the director and reported to a previous clerk in that position for some time. And then you're also paying some number of interns in addition to that, because having the interns is great, but if nobody's directing them, a team of interns, it just doesn't work. It did work incredibly well. That was one of the very best innovations that I saw here, was having that policy team. Because prior to that, there were times when it was really the Wild West, and people would just make policy ideas on the dais, and maybe they made sense, maybe they didn't. They were usually not very well baked, and it ended up being assigned then to usually somebody in the city manager's office to go do some work on it, and that person already had a 40-hour-a-week job. So that didn't work, in my opinion. Doesn't mean some good things didn't happen anyway, they did, but it also spent a lot of people's wheels spinning. So that's why the policy interns and their director were created in the first place. And it worked very, very well until we could afford it. And our situation, budget-wise, is certainly no different now than it was when we disbanded the department. So I don't anticipate any of that changing. I am interested in creating opportunities for future commissions, whether that be future iterations that include some of us, or whether we're talking about 50,000 people from now. But there will be a point at which the expectation of the community the very reasonable expectation of the community to get constituent services and things like that done outstrips the ability of the commission to meet those expectations. So those are just trying to answer a few of the things that had come up there. There's certainly nothing in front of us now, I don't think, that involves any kind of budgetary process. That's way down the road from where we are at this point. Because yes, that is not a direct need of the community to stop doing something else so that we can do that. I mean, I don't foresee that in the near future. Commissioner Engel.
I had a couple of lawyer questions. So currently, the city commissioners are not allowed to give direct instructions to staff on how to do things, correct?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. We have a very, I think, pure sort of council manager form of government. Yes.
So that being said, I do that all the time, right? Get a legislative aid, I call and ask to have something out of my calendar, or could this be done, or could that be done? And that happens regularly with all of us. So how do those two
I think
things
you can
jive?
distinguish that. That's not the sort of direction I think that's contemplated. That is inquiring about them, about doing the tasks that are assigned to them by their charter officer and within their job description. Things like answering the phone, taking messages, maintaining your calendars, helping with correspondence. Those I see as less as being you directing them to do things other than you expressing the needs of your position, the needs of the office. And that may sound like a semantic difference, but I think there is a real difference there, rather than being the direct supervisor. The supervisor administratively being the person who's in charge of assisting them to guide their career, to provide performance evaluations, to ensure that they have the proper training in place, to do all the checks that a supervisor for all the things that a supervisor has to do to ensure that the employee is compliant with the policies and law surrounding the overall organization, and that they also are developing as an employee. So asking to draft a letter or to schedule an appointment, I don't see those as being direction type things that are contemplated by the charter.
And most of that seems more back of house administrative managerial stuff that you mentioned than the actual interactions between me and my legislative aide.
And again, if you have a difficulty with getting these office tasks performed, then I think it's incumbent upon you then to speak with their supervisor, the clerk, about, and they can either have a discussion with that employee, can move employees around, find ones that are better fit, things like that. And even ultimately to the point of, I think as Ben's alluded here, if the needs of a commissioner change over time, then it is a process through the charter officer and the HR department to evaluate the positions and how well they fit the needs of the organization at any given time, and job descriptions do change.
So, I mean, do you think that we could effectively change that job description and expand that to more responsibilities while it was still technically not directly reporting to a commissioner?
I think
to include things like going to a meeting or...
Mr. Mayor, I think you absolutely could change a job description so that the responsibilities change or even become heightened, but not so that it provides for direction, supervision, administrative authority by the elected official. And then again, so it would still be incumbent upon their supervisor, be it the clerk or some intermediate supervisor employee of the city, to ensure that they're complying with. It becomes a more complicated supervisory role then, but it's certainly possible. There's going to be Fair Labor Standards Act requirements. There's going to be hourly work requirements. When people are working unusual schedules or remote working or working after hours, there is a heightened level of record keeping that's going to be required to ensure that their rights aren't violated, and to ensure that the city is protected from accusations that their rights aren't being violated. We have a whole bunch of professionals in HR with a lot of letters after their names that help us to be cognizant of those enforcement responsibilities.
With the way our charter is now, is there any reason why we could not have interns that function very similarly to that would research policy I asked them to or anything like that, but worked for the clerk's office?
We absolutely could. And that's what we had in a sense, with the policy research group under the clerk. And again, Mr. Folsom is here, and he has had much more hands-on responsibility as the supervisor of that group. But they were fellows. They're similar to interns, but I think time-limited temps, I think, is what we use. And Ms. Gretz can correct me if I'm wrong there, where they were paid. And that has been a significant policy directive of this commission. It's also a significant part of federal law that we pay for employment. And there are exceptions of true internship programs where there's a lengthy test, and the test goes to, is the benefit really for the intern, not the organization? That's the way to boil it down. Interns aren't there to serve an organization. They're there to grow and progress themselves. And that's a real thumbnail version of it. But we could certainly have interns, under your current policy, compensated interns, that are time-limited temp workers that may report to the clerk or any of your charter officers. We have them in the manager's office or one of your offices already. It's the commission can direct any of us how to allocate our resources. If you feel that your needs aren't being served, you can certainly change, propose charter amendments, things like that. But what you can do this very day is tell me you need something different from me. Tell the manager you need something more different from him and the clerk, and that holds true for all of your charter officers.
So we've got some interns that work through the city now, correct?
Correct.
Those interns are outside the bargaining unit, inside the bargaining unit?
So the Civigators are outside because they're actually paid for through the University of Florida. The interns that we have in various departments are part of the city. I'm not sure, Ms. Gretz, if they covered by bargaining. I would imagine they would probably be under CWA, but I'm not 100% sure.
Certainly. So, Mayor and Commissioners, Laura Gretz again. So to answer your question, Commissioner, typically our intern positions are temporary in nature, right? So temporary positions are not covered by a labor agreement. So that is a factor to keep in mind.
Okay. Thanks. And I think that's all the questions I have for now.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Engel. Commissioner Eastman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hit my button before you spoke, and I think you said everything that I could possibly want to say, but quite well. I think to your point, talking about this portion of our charter, I think is very similar to talking about the other charter amendment that we have coming up shortly, which is that we try to think through where possibilities arise in the future, right? I mean, we don't. Our charter is a much larger document that exists over the course of generations. I'm pretty sure this provision was in there in the original 1924, 1925 charter that was adopted back then. And so looking forward, it's not that we intend for someone to leave office in the middle and we want to figure out how they are appointed, or that, God forbid, something happens to someone and we now have to figure out how that office is filled. In the same way that, we clearly are not going to be extending out our executive assistants at this particular time. So I think, Mr. Mayor, since you said it better than I could, this really is about looking out and looking forward and seeing, do we think it is appropriate for our city charter to be limiting something that many other city charters allow their city commissions to do? And it seems like this was almost sort of a quirk of the way our charter was written in Tallahassee's, according to the backup that I have that Mr. Polston worked on when he was the public policy person. That they just have sort of the city commission has the authority to do things that if it's not explicitly stated in other parts of the charter, they have the authority to do it. And that is the portion that they put out there for that. Ours is just fairly strict in this way. I will say this, the reason that this came up is that we were considering having, there was a commissioner who was trying to bring in an intern. And that intern was not able to come into the city, I believe, because of 2.10 of our city charter. So it has come up recently. And so I feel like I get kind of where I'll hear, well, yes, theoretically this can be done, but then practically when it does try to get done, there's we run into the same kind of a wall and it's always related to this provision. So can we, I guess, Mr. Attorney, I mean, or the city clerk or whoever can, could I have, and could we as city commissioners have an intern that comes in at 10 a.m., Tuesday, Wednesdays, meets with us, talks with us about, what we are, the work that we're doing at any given time, and like, could that be done currently within our process? James Engel kind of mentioned that, but that was something that, that was brought up fairly recently and kind of started this conversation.
Again, Mr. Mayor, I think the key is that the supervisory authority, the administrative authority, couldn't go to the elected official. If it was arranged such that it's through the clerk, through any other charter officer, then yes. To the extent that we can craft a job description, and again, we say intern, but again, we have a policy in favor of paid temporary employees, basically, that we may call interns, but there's a distinction there. And that, and if it was going to be unpaid, then again, in that memo that we had provided, there's a 7-step test that's not inclusive, that you again have to make sure that it really serves the ends of the intern, not the organization. But I think it is conceivable that you could have these sort of, we called them fellows before, that report through the clerk's office or report through an office of the city manager or our office or whoever's office, that is going to strive to satisfy the needs that you have, yet still be administratively supervised by a member of the organization who can ensure that they're compliant with all the policies are complied with and laws are complied with.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Attorney.
Thank you, Commissioner Eastman. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did push my button when the question was asked about the job descriptions, but just moving on to, we're talking about a process here that is going to, like Mr. Mayor mentioned, is going to not necessarily affect this city commission. However, I have heard you all say that you feel a need for more robust support. And I know I've already met with my team. We have another meeting coming up. I've met with Ms. Gretz, where we can dive into the current job description and see if there's any, gaps that we need to be filling, or if we can expand and retool the job description to be able to meet your needs in the short term. We are absolutely in the process of doing that after hearing, you all talk and, reading the backup. It sounds like there is a real need for more robust support for you all in the short term. And so that's what I'm certainly committed to doing. As for the policy research team, or if something, maybe less, like we are in still very constrained budget climate, but maybe there's something that we could put forward that was not necessarily a policy research team, but oversight by my office that would allow you all to have some intern or temporary paid employee that could be able to assist you with some of your legislative priorities. And that would give you access to debt, in the short term, to be able to have that support that you're seeking. So I'm open to thinking creatively and outside of the box to be able to bring back maybe some constructs that might work for you all, so that I'm taking the supervisory piece that would allow you all to be able to assign tasks. And I agree with the city attorney, speaking to Commissioner Engel's comment about, I direct my staff as to their job description. I direct their task. My direction is support the commission. So when you're asking them, please, analyze travel for me, please pull back up for a future meeting, please schedule these meetings. I want to, meet with community members on this topic that's important to me. You're technically, and it is splitting hairs, but it is an important distinction, are not directing them. They are fulfilling the tasks that I have directed them to do through city process, and it is not violative of the city charter. I hope that is helpful.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I do want to be clear, though, that I don't think anybody has said the EAs are not, the system doesn't work, or been critical of EAs. We're talking about elevating the systems to a different place, because the city's going to grow. The expectations of the city's elected officials are going to continue to grow. And it really is more of a matter, to me, much more than policy research, of constituent services. If I am out meeting with people all day, I do not have the capacity to also work on constituent services. And I am not telling you that, or anyone, that our EA staff is not doing the very best they can at that. But there's a level of inefficiency to, no matter how you put it together, no one would develop a system from scratch where the person who's being assisted did not have direction capacity for the person they're assisting. I mean, it's not a system you would build. It's a system that kind of evolved around something. This is an old item in our charter. It's not something that somebody came up with to describe a current system. We get around things as best we can, and get the result that we hope for as best we can. But it's not an optimal, efficient system that you would build if you were going to build one. I want everybody to think about that. Is this the system as it currently exists that you would build to achieve the result? And I think it probably is not. I know that a couple of our charter officers have assistants that work for them. And I would suggest that if you don't think the way that you do it works, then try doing it the way we do it for a little while and see how you like it. But that's just a suggestion, certainly not direction. Again, I am not talking about today. I'm talking about how this system works when there are more people in this city and where we have different expectations than we have today, because you cannot flip it on a dime. It will take a year and a half, whenever anybody decides to put this on a ballot, for something to actually happen. And I think it's a useful discussion to have now. If it does move forward, cool. It'll be interesting to see, 5 years from now and then 10 years from now when it comes up again. So, Commissioner Willits.
Thank you, Mr. Merritt. Some of this is kind of, we've gone over, but so yeah, I really do think this is about future commissions, because like the timeline you mentioned, this is something well in the future, and a future commission would have to pass an ordinance, would have to argue about it, would have to fully design what they're thinking about for probably, directed interns, and or other sort of aides. And we did, 6 of us on this commission, we ended the policy research department. So we know something about previous commissions setting something up, and we changed something, largely for budgetary reasons. I think the idea of, even in the future, a paid intern that was accountable directly to a city commissioner, that would be a stepping stone to understand, and probably would be more natural than before jumping straight in. And so I think there's the big idea, what we see in other cities, but in between there's some other options. But on the same side, there's some options of, if there's some budget wiggle room, do we go back to having internally the policy piece, the policy research team? And I like that idea of just because we got rid of it in the past, but keeping it somewhere there and saying, if budget gets a little more, or even if it's so necessary that we have to carve out some extra budget room, that's part of the natural conversation. We cut stuff and we realize which lever we really needed. So it's an ongoing conversation. I don't think we should feel bad about it. And even if we change our mind, we shouldn't feel bad about it. So I appreciate that, talking about that. So and I want to give an example that I also want to talk about continuity of even EAs. I think I've had 7 EAs in 3 years and 2 months. And I don't know that anybody in a management position would feel happy if their assistant had switched 7 times in that time period. You would think that the boss was the problem, but I'm not the boss of this person, you know. And I don't think it was me. It's been lots of different things. People left, new jobs, this, that, the other, you know. There are all kinds of different things that happened. But the continuity would have helped. I'm going to give an example of something that perhaps I just didn't ask the right person the right question. But you've heard me talk about the 2012 Master Parks Plan so much because I've seen it somewhere. I do not have a physical copy of it. I evidently cannot be provided a physical copy of it. They do not exist. And eventually I stopped asking. But it did actually have it. You put in backup somewhere, May 11, 2023. I knew I'd seen it somewhere. I'd seen it on an online visual PDF, you know, like web browser thing. Well, and back in 2022, I'd seen it. I knew what I was talking about. Good, grasp it. And then somewhere I could find that link. The link disappeared because it's an old document. It's a huge file, so you don't email it to people. And I asked Parks and said, oh, yeah, it's there, blah, blah, blah. And my request is at some point, because I can't direct anybody to go do something. I can't say, you have to spend money to print a 460-page report. I don't have the ability. I have an office budget, but I don't have the ability to tell anybody because that is not a, you know, can you put something on my office desk? Can you go grab my mail? It's not a small ask. It is I don't know where the document is. It has been, you know, someone's going to have to go back and say, do you want all 460 pages? Do you want this? But someone I direct, that would be their job. And the continuity to know that I've been talking about this for 3 years, and even the 2023, finding that was in backup, I didn't get it to me until July 18th, 2024. I looked back at my email because I had a particular EA who was like really, really go-getting, wanting to personally assist, but it's someone I had temporarily. And so the continuity of all of this. So I just don't know if I didn't ask right because like the truth is I want a 460-page document printed because it's now a 14-year-old document that it seems like this current commission has never read or seen. You probably did because it was tail end of. But that it is a policy of the city, and it is not in our hands. And when we did our master needs update, parks update, it was in backup somewhere, but it's not in our hands. And there's a wealth of maps in it. I know sometimes you got to see the maps in person. And this is not a criticism. It's not a criticism of any particular charter or staff member. It's that the lack of the continuity and the lack of it is someone's job to really get a 460-page document that is out of print, that will cost money, and someone to know, like, just be clear, Casey, Commissioner Willis, that's going to come out of your office budget. Fine, yeah, if that's where a 460-page document gets paid out of, fine. I got a little money in the office budget, make it happen. But I use that as an example of an intricate bureaucratic system stymieing the will of the voters. And I'm going to say that again. An intricate bureaucratic system stymieing the will of the voters, because though we don't have our pulse on everything and not every plan makes it into a campaign flyer, we are the will of the voters. Right here, we're the will of the voters. Bureaucratic systems are difficult, but sometimes there are things that help cut through it. And having someone I can direct to say, I need you to help me cut through this, would be highly helpful. And I give a tiny example because I have 10 other tiny examples. And some things never rise to the importance of like going to someone's supervisor, of someone who you don't supervise, and just sharing an opinion. But I use that as an example because it's something that has bedeviled me on one document. And I really wanted to, and it did get emailed somewhere in, again, it's 460-page document. On the same backup were hundreds of additional pages of different backup. It is understandable that a commissioner who's part-time might lose track of where that document is because it wasn't emailed to me. It's on a link through the whatever, eScribe. But an aide, if it's my biggest one thing, a personal aide, a legislative aide, would have absolutely been with me on this ride. Even if they're only there for a year, would have been with me, and then that would have been handed over as Willis's, baby. Willis's legislative baby. Now it's someone else's responsibility. I use that as an example because it has made me probably deeply down furious that I could not get what I wanted. But eventually you give up because you're not going to throw a fit over, I want a 460-page document that I really only want to view about 5 pages of, But but I will decide which 5 pages. In my aide, I would say, no, print 10 copies of this. I'm going to hand out that 1 page. Anyways, I use that as an example of those kinds of things would make me a better legislator, or faster, more efficient. And I think all 7 of us would be, instead of trying to remember something in the past. Boom, get it, provide it. That's the way stuff happens in the Florida legislature, and in larger, more professional cities and counties, where you gotta have that stuff. You gotta present that presentation. We pay consultants hundreds of thousands of dollars and barely get the will of the voters into that presentation, because I get 15 minutes with the consultant to talk to them. And I don't have anyone personally helping me prepare for that 15 minutes. So we pay people plenty of money to make plans. You know, maybe we can help the legislators who are the will of the voters be prepared to go meet with a consultant, be prepared to go talk to legislators, or go talk to county commission or school board. And so there are a lot of things where the importance, as opposed to 7 of us having to instruct a charter officer to rise it in importance, if we could direct someone, it would help us. Again, I don't want to manage someone's time card. I really don't. And this is something that is probably years in the future, and I probably won't, I wouldn't see it. Even if I ran again and won re-election, I won't see it, probably. So, but anyways, I bring it up as a thing that gets left behind, as opposed to having someone who is 100%, they absolutely know it is their job to help you with the loose ends of your policy agenda. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Willis. We have 3 lights, and then we're going to go to the public, and then we'll come back up here to see if there's anything else we might want to actually do. Commissioner Book.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I remain pretty narrowly focused on the internship component, because all these other components, while they're important and they may prepare us for the future, they do come with things like budgetary impacts and job descriptions and audits and expansion of personnel and potentially even charter review. And that is a big, as you said, Commissioner, even, that's the Constitution, so that's a big, big picture if you're talking about dealing with charter, change. I'm pretty similar to you, Commissioner Duncan Walker, and you, Commissioner Engel, and some of the things that y'all have said as it relates to an internship program. I think that the disadvantages for thing when we use this term legislative aid are just too fraught with risk for us at the moment. Again, that's probably way down the road. Replacement or alteration of our EA system, I'm totally comfortable with our EA system and the support I get there. Even though I know staff attrition can often mean change in who we have applying to us. That was in my previous job too. So I understand that, but I feel like and I'm very comfortable with that support, and not looking for us to come up with some big budgetary impacts. No way, no how. At the time, we're sitting on the 30 positions roughly that are frozen at 1 million. We talked about that at Finance Committee, and these are people in bargaining units, by the way, that are sitting, we're waiting to fill, and these are good wage. So I just think that they're probably, and interns are not a replacement for staff expertise. No way, no how. Interns get the benefit of doing research for whoever directs them or operates or supervises them. And then in turn, we get some information, but there is tremendous benefit to primarily the students at University of Florida, Santa Fe College, or any other area, the Bob Graham Center, that get that. And I think we can, I think it would behoove us as a community to have an internship program that supports the commission, that is not some great budgetary impact, and that works for those students. UF, I was looking, they have 6 programs, and they say consider these hands-on experience a means to cultivate valuable and relevant competency and develop a unique portfolio of work experience. That's what the city does for people, especially the students. We want them to take our places someday. I'm not interested in supervising, managing, evaluating, or doing a timesheet either, which is what the mayor talked about. But hearing what the clerk said, I think there probably is a motion related that I'd like to make related to the internship program very narrowly, and see if that follows in line with both our charter without changing it, and gives us potentially the option to determine if we can move it forward. So I do have a motion related to that. There has to be a pay and compensation component. what I have heard anecdotally over the years from those who wanted to be interns was they were far more interested. These are students. They were much more interested in the compensatory credit, the academic credit, which is worth a tremendous amount of money, than getting the $15 an hour or whatever, because they wanted that. So there is, and UF often provides the academic credit there. So, Mr. Mayor, I'm welcome to hear from others or something, but otherwise I do have a motion related to the internship. We'll see if that is narrowly crafted to meet some support up here.
Well, if you want to go make the motion now, then we can all kind of respond to it.
All right. It's pretty short. I have it, it's different. All right. I provided something earlier in case it came up, but I think based on what I heard, it kind of has to change. It's direct city staff to bring back the framework for an internship program for the commission, operated and supervised by the city clerk. Now, if they commit, they may tell us it costs too much and we don't do it. But that's what they're there to do. The advantages and disadvantages, they tell us. If there's a policy like 2.10 that needs changing, and they tell us what the capacity and impact is to the staff, that's what the clerk could research. But I think that might allow us to get the finite information and move forward. So this is it right here.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second, and then a couple of lights here. Commissioner Engel.
I had a couple of things to say prior to the motion. Just that I think a lot of what I'm hearing could be accomplished without the necessity of changing the charter. And I think it kind of works with this. Most of what I hear that the shortcomings are now are not a question of whether they technically work for the clerk or technically work for me. It's a matter of there's not enough resources being put into somebody who is there full-time for a specific commissioner. Like we all had our own aide that wasn't trying to serve as another commissioner and trying to keep track of all the citizen advisory boards and trying to do all the other things that go in there. We've got a smaller staff than we need to accomplish the work that we're doing. And I want to make this very clear to the clerk. When I say that, I am not asking you to find some more work to pile on the people that are already overworked in this because we've already cut positions and time and resources to everything across the city. It's a thing I wish we had, not a thing that I expect to be made out of the resources that we're already putting into this. Until we put more resources into it, I'm not expecting just miracles to be done with that. I am not opposed to the idea of having an opportunity for some interns to come in. I've heard that college credit versus the paycheck argument a lot. And I think one of the things that gets overlooked in that is that cuts out the people that need to make a living. So what happens is people are very, very happy to get the credit if they've got enough money to live on. But if you're the type of student that also has to have a job, then you don't get those opportunities because you have to go out and earn a living. And instead those opportunities go to someone who can afford to not have a job while they're doing this thing. So to make that equitable and to make sure that all the members of the community and all different students are able to look at these internships, it is very important for me to be paid. And I think that cash is certainly not important to all of them, but it is disparately important to some of them. I'm not opposed to the idea of internships and getting a report back on it. I am skeptical on the charter change right now.
Good. All right, thank you, Commissioner Engel. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll want to touch on a couple of points and things I heard. I think I guess real quickly to the discussion of internship. As we've talked about, we have an ongoing relationship with the University of Florida for the Civigators program. We have about, I think, 18 spots. I think from last we heard from the University of Florida, they have over 100 applicants. So I think there's definitely an interest there from the UF side. If the city were desired to add more slots for interns, so I think the interest is certainly there. I guess with regard to some of the other elements of the discussion, I'll leave off the sort of direct supervision charter stuff. But I do think that if there is, as the clerk indicated, if there is a desire from the commission to have a different job description for those positions, then I think that's something that would be a discussion with HR staff. I mean, we heard some ideas of what that potential potential duties would be, but I think that would be we probably want to have a more in-depth conversation about that. That is, I guess, and I'm very careful not to just throw out a bunch of ideas, but that is perhaps a sort of interim step, if you will. I think there has been a lot of discussion today about this is sort of long-term planning, something that would be in potentially in future years. That may be a step for you all to kind of get your feet wet, feel like what that could look like in terms of a future kind of legislative aid. But clearly, I mean, it sounds like there may be a somewhat of a mismatch between job descriptions of what the executive assistant job description and what the commission has. And truly, I mean, we have EAs all over the city, and I think the job description is really probably oriented towards a EA serving a department director, which is most of where we have EAs. They're direct support to department directors or other upper level staff working in a city department as opposed to in these sort of more unique positions. So I just wanted to add that from a job description standpoint, that is, I think, as the attorney's office indicated, and is true for my charter as well. Like, we are here if there are specific issues that the commission doesn't feel is getting addressed. Like, tell us, and we will jump on those things. The only thing I can't fix things that I don't know about or that that haven't been raised to me, and that's my job, is to make sure that that those things are being addressed that are within my charter. So I just wanted to offer that we're definitely happy to sit down and work with the clerk on job descriptions if that's also something that comes out. I think we could chew gum and walk at the same time. Those things are not necessarily, all these discussions are not mutually exclusive to each other.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. And so in a very positive way, I will say that's exactly the response that I would expect from you. That tell me what you need me to do and I'll do it. And I appreciate that. But I think you would agree that a longtime executive assistant is someone who can kind of anticipate things in ways that you can't, because sometimes it's not even your department's responsibility. I mean, the city manager's area of need that we need some help in. We don't always know exactly what it is we're looking for. And yeah, I appreciate that all our charter officers are doing the absolute best you can to serve what you perceive the requests and the needs of the commission at large to be. I have no doubt about that. If I did, we'd have a conversation about it. But I believe that you all are doing the very best you can, and I believe the people who work for you to serve us are doing the best you can so that we can all meet the needs of the community. We just see things from a little different perspective. And that's what brings forward discussions like this every few years that don't really go anywhere. Commissioner Engel, then Commissioner Eastman, and then I'd really like to get to the public. Commissioner Engel.
Turn my microphone on. One, I think the benefit of having long-term EAs here versus just interns. I can tell you, a year ago I walked into this job like just some blindfolded kid wildly trying to hit a pinata. Right? Like, didn't know anything from where the bathrooms and snack machines were to how I got something on the agenda to any of that. So having people there with long-term expertise that know how the system works and where the buttons and levers are and all that stuff is something that I think is irreplaceable with somebody that's going to be a short-term intern, and I want to make sure we keep that in mind. Two, the talking about changing the job descriptions, I just want to also remember that we are talking about negotiated jobs, and you can't just decide in the middle of a contract that their job descriptions are radically changing too. So when we sit down and negotiate out what somebody's going to get paid, what the responsibilities are, those things are linked. So if we're going to sit down and start talking about other responsibilities they're going to have and other things they're expected to do and expanding job descriptions, that comes along with a negotiation. That's all I had. Just that as we're having these discussions, I want to make sure we kept those two things in mind.
Thank you, Commissioner Engel and Commissioner Eastman.
Yeah, we can go to the public and then come back afterward. I don't have anything for the moment.
Okay. All right. Madam Clerk.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have 2 speakers signed up. Well, we actually had the 4, but I didn't know if you were going to call up. Okay, so we have 4 speakers. Jen Powell.
Welcome, Ms. Powell.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. Thanks for letting me speak today. I'm actually here. I found out there was some staffing issue on the agenda, and apparently that was all that was on the agenda. I am the organizer for CWA 3170. I know all of you guys. My main concern, and it, of course, I saw, a lot addressed on the dais, Mr. Engel, with the bargaining unit, well, it's same thing, book, the budget, Ms. Walker, or Commissioner Walker, everything you said about the current employees. I don't know that anybody was really afraid that this was an attack, but maybe a opening door, getting a foot in for, yes, later on down the road. The job descriptions, I think everybody said they weren't sure, a couple people said they knew what the job descriptions were. I've been reviewing them, and it's very geared, the job description is for that position. So the other ones don't have the extra city commission mayor stuff in there. So what I was reading was that they can attend meetings, they do, do things for you guys. Been coming to a lot of meetings over the years. It's the first time it's ever been an issue. I'm just curious if maybe you guys are just a little bit more gung-ho about things. So there's a lot more of that policy research that's going on. So I am 100% behind, like Mr. Engels or Commissioner Engel said, sitting down and reworking job description, and so the EAs aren't panicking that that's going to be more work. Really looking at everything on there and seeing where it can be divided around possibly, instead of bringing in a whole new EA, to assist, seeing if there's any other, staffing positions around there that could absorb some of the things that aren't directly related to the city commission. So I just hope that we can work around like that. I'll tell you, I had some really difficult conversations with some employees who work for the city recently, and I do not want to see money, but budget decisions being made. I'm talking to employees who work here who are struggling to pay their bills. They can't pay their rent. They don't have health insurance for their families because they can't afford it. So when we talk about the budget, we have, in our bargaining unit, 400 something, people. So we need to be taking care of the people who are here doing the work. And right now with the wages at some of these positions who are in jobs that need to be done are not being paid enough to live in Gainesville or to be able to drive in from outside of Gainesville, so that's my concern. I appreciate you letting me speak, and thank you.
Thank you.
Brett Rule.
But before we go to the next person, again, I want to be clear that there's nothing on the table about adding positions. That hasn't even been a concern. I mean, it's. Yeah.
Brett Rule.
Welcome, Mr. Brule.
Hi, everybody. Brett Buell, Gainesville Opportunity Center. I have recently made my round, so I have met with almost every one of you except for Commissioner Engel, and have not met directly with Mr. Lee. However, I met with Michelle Martin in the attorney's office. So the Gainesville Opportunity Center helps adults living with severe and persistent mental illness whose lives have been significantly interrupted by mental illness rejoin the community and lead productive and meaningful lives. Mental illness has been their barrier to employment, along with other factors like frequent hospitalizations, things that have led to their homelessness, and not receiving or seeking routine care. One of the most common mental illness symptoms of any type of diagnosis is that people lose the will, the ability to self-care, and so they don't do the routine things, even though in their logical mind they know they need to get out of bed and go to work, but they just don't feel good enough, they don't feel strong enough, they don't feel like it matters. So not going to work leads to homelessness, leads to medical problems, leads to all kinds of community needs that are high-cost services that the city or county or other government agency pays for. So I think most of you guys are familiar with this, but just real briefly, I'll say that in our accredited mental health clubhouse, the members get their treatment from great institutions like Meridian, through UF Health, through private psychologists, et cetera, et cetera. But for those people that can't get out of bed and can't take the next steps, if they can come to the GOC, they meet other people that have lived experience with severe mental illness, that are moving forward with their lives, and slowly they get involved in our work program, and slowly they think, oh my gosh, they can do it, maybe I can too. We let them do tasks that are important jobs at the GOC at their own pace, and the idea that I can't do that soon turns into, oh my gosh, look what I just did. And then we use that as a tool to leverage them back out into the community. What we are asking for is for the city to create 2 positions for us, part-time temporary positions that we would support. They would be carve-out jobs, and they would be something that just isn't getting done. We have 2 such positions at the county, one in the mailroom and one in the janitorial. And in the mailroom, we have somebody that pushes the mail around for 2 hours a day, 4 days a week. And it saves another employee from having to do that, a higher cost employee that has other responsibility. It fits a need because it allows something to get done that needs to get done. It takes stress off of your other staff. Your other more skilled staff may not have to do this anymore, and it helps get people back out into the community and back into life. I have met with the city manager, and we are looking, I know they're working hard on it. I want to thank all of you guys for looking into this need for us, and we hope that we can move further. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Scott Heish.
Welcome. It's been a while since we had you at the lectern.
Yeah, good afternoon. It has been a while. Things have changed around here. My name is Scott Hesh. I'm a proud member and advocate of the GOC, the Gainesville Opportunity Center. I don't have much to add. I'm a better person because of the GOC. And I'm here to support Brett. He knows how to say all the stuff he needs to say. We need to get people to work. It's amazing. They're always throwing new rules and new ideas and new policies at us. And getting people to work has always been important, but now it's even more important in order to keep our funding and things like that at the GOC. So it's a great place.
All right, thank you.
And finally, Khalid Blum.
Welcome, Mr. Blount.
Well, saving the best for last. Huh? I want to suggest that you have a position, a group called Thesis Colloquium. And their direct supervisor would be a UF instructor, and they'd have site supervision by staff here. And their payment is, you've talked about it a little, is academic credit. Maybe it can even count toward the community service requirement that they have for graduation. And I sympathize with the idea that some students do need the income. But as the university is making its efforts to have a richer student body, that they are encouraging this huge apartment construction right around campus. I know that's behind the scenes, but there's actually no such thing as behind the scenes. Tearing down on campus family housing. So you're going to have many fewer UF students that are economically stressed because the university is making it impossible for people who don't have healthy incomes to come here.
Thank you, Mr. Blount.
That was our last speaker, Mr. Mayor.
So I do want to clear up a little bit of a misconception as a parent of a high school senior who is looking at a variety of colleges around the country. UF is about the least expensive place you could possibly go to college. Just saying. Commissioner Eastman.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Gainesville Opportunity Center. I'm glad you guys are able to be in communication with our city manager's office, and I think it's I guess it just going back to we have a motion that's on the table, but going back to kind of the broader discussion, Commissioner Willett sort of touched on it, and the mayor sort of touched on it as well, but you're right, Mr. Mayor. This comes up every couple of years. I kind of wish Commissioner Chestnut was here because we talked about this 6 years ago on the Charter Review Commission, where the discussion was about the hiring of staff for the commission. And I think a lot of this comes down to the fact, and this is true with many, many parts of our city, is that we are a small city that is now a medium-sized city that is, growing. We're in the state of Florida, and we are looking forward to an area where we're medium, large to large-sized city, right? And our structures right now, in many ways, are designed around us being a city that's about a quarter of our size. We are designed around a city that's the size of Alachua or Newberry, and we are not the size of Alachua or Newberry. We're 150,000 people, growing rapidly, right? About 50% of the growth in Alachua County over the last 5 years has been in the city of Gainesville. I think we have about 4,500 folks thereabouts that have moved here. I think we are continuing to grow as a city, and the city and so the question keeps coming up: how do we continue to provide these services? And as city commissioners, and we're expected to do a lot up here. I mean, all of our staff does a really tremendous job on everything, but at the end of the day, our constituents reach out to us and expect us to follow up with them, to say what's going on with these menial things that are happening with, not menial things, but things going on in their neighborhood, what's going on with the zoning. So we're doing that sort of work. We're doing outward communications. We're showing up at HOAs, making sure that we are talking with each one of the neighbors. We're doing, Commissioner Willett sort of touched on it, but policy research is a big part of it. We're the main people that bring new policies forward, like I did with this, right? We are all, and we are the ones who are reviewing contracts, reviewing a lot of the backup, making these kind of broad decisions, and we do so as a part-time role, right? And so for some of us, that is easier than others. I run a business, so I have more flexibility. Some folks are retired, they have more flexibility. Some folks run a business and they have a lot less flexibility. I mean, it is a part-time role that does not, that makes it so many people have to do work. And so we've constantly been struggling with how exactly do we ensure that we can provide the services that our constituents expect us to provide as those constituents continue to grow, and as we, and the expectations, as you said, Mr. Mayor, aren't shrinking. They're staying exactly the same. So I understand, my colleagues saying, looking at the structure of it, and there may be other ways to design the structure. I'll say that there's a categorical difference between employees that are both not just hired, but supervised, directed entirely by folks within the civil service, as opposed to having at least a hybrid system, or doing something in which there is more direction to do all of that legislative work. I don't think it's a very natural fit for the civil service to be doing the same amount of policy analysis, or as you said, following up with each one of the policies that we know are priorities of ours. And we need to do that. If we can do our job well, then that makes sure that Public Works does their job well. It makes sure that communications is able to get out what they need to. It helps push everything forward. And so finding solutions to that is important. I think it's worth continuing to have a conversation about. We can, figure out the motion that's here, but I think continue to have a conversation about this, because this is not something that's going away. I mean, we had a Charter Review Commission 6 years ago. There'll be another one in 4 years, where I'm sure this will come up again. This can come up now, but eventually our city's going to have a discussion about how do we allow future commissions to do what nearly every large city in the country does, which is have a legislative branch with a little more meat on its bones than what we currently have. The rest of the city has a lot more meat, has gotten more meat on its bones over that time period. And I think it's worth having that discussion. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Commissioner Eastman. Commissioner Duncan Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a quick question and then just wanted to share an experience that I'd had. About a year and a half ago, I had the opportunity to go out and speak by invitation to some students out at the Levin College of Law. And unfortunately, the organization is skipping my memory, but I am sure that my EA could look back in my emails and get that name. The reason I'm saying that is because there was a great level of interest that was expressed by those students to be a part of an internship program. After my speaking engagement that day, Marie Claire, who has actually come and been extremely eloquent from that podium there regarding policy, who's a brilliant young attorney, took me over into a particular office where some administrators discussed the fact that they can pay the interns. Now, I don't know, Attorney Nee, if that is something that is permissible, but I just wanted to kind of throw that out there because that, you know, when we start talking about the idea of paid internships, it's something that I'm in support of. We also know our budgetary constraints. So I'm just throwing this out as possibly another thing that we may be able to consider if it is legal. Attorney Nee, is that something that we would be able to look at?
And again, Mr. Mayor, I believe that's the model the Civigators works under.
Is it? Okay.
And so the issue isn't whether you can have interns. We do have interns. We have interns like that. The issue is back to who's going to administratively supervise them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. I'm certainly looking forward to continuing that conversation because I think that the young professionals who are being cultivated and who really do have a desire to engage with us in that way are numerous. I'll conclude.
Thank you, Commissioner Duncan Walker. I don't see any other lights. There's a motion and second on the table. The motion by Commissioner Book is direct city staff to bring back a framework for an internship program for the city commission operated and supervised by the city clerk's office. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passed unanimously with Commissioner Chestnut absent. That addresses part of the issue before us. This will come back up again, and whether we do anything today or not, the remainder of the issue will come back up again. Does it happen soon? I don't know, but you can expect that. We had conversations on the dais before the Charter Review Commission. The Charter Review Commission talked about it. And here we are again talking about it, and I'm kind of tired of talking about it. Commissioner Willits.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to throw out in the conversation a little bit about paid versus unpaid. Just last week, or Lord, was it earlier this week? It was Monday. We heard about peak literacy, the volume of work needed to help our young people learn to read. And that's a volunteer program, partially because it needs to happen. We learn 15 minutes at a time. So a volunteer might be able to get to 2 students, and that's all they can manage in one day because they're not there 8 hours a day. It's a period. It's an after school. And so sometimes we're very, very free and happy to have volunteer labor. And then other times there is a difference because it's full-time work or half-time work. It's a 0.5 FTE. But I throw that out there is because independently, if we don't have what we need, we will find volunteers to help us in the community. I don't know, Commissioner Duncan, you mentioned it. There are experts in the community I rely on, and I ask, what is this? How does this? Do you have any experience? How does this work in cities? Which is all great stuff because you're hearing from the community, their experience, broadening the circles. There are advocacy groups who, this is what they want to talk about, or they're already talking about, so they may have stuff at their fingertips. So sometimes we absolutely rely on volunteer, help. It's just not someone in the city. But I like the idea of the intern. If it's going to be an intern, it's a paid experience, particularly so that people who are not getting just the school credit, they can learn something, have it on their resume, and have helped affect policy, even if they're not a university student, knowing that still to this day, only 50% of Americans have a college degree or something around there. In this community, we're all college oriented, or at least definitely in sports, right? We're college oriented, but not everyone goes to college, and those people should have an ability to help and impact policy. So I like the idea of paid internships. I'll just say that again. I'm still willing to move this idea forward because it really is about charter amendment, long-term process to put it on the ballot in November. And it is something, as it's written, seems pretty like, when someone read it, they go, oh yeah, like, commission should be able to, to do that. They should be able to. And they probably think it already happens. People are always like, oh, I thought you already did this. I thought you already did this. I thought you already did this. So I'm still willing to move forward with this, and continue this conversation. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Willets. Commissioner Eastman.
Yeah, okay, well then, so I think I will make a motion to it. What I will say is that in order to get this on the ballot, we will need a supermajority of votes, right? I believe it's 5 out of 7 of the folks that are there.
That's correct.
Yeah. I would like to move. I mean, I think it's worth moving forward the conversation. It does sound like if we are split here, then it will be very difficult for us to get 5 out of the 7. But I would still like to move that we at least direct the city attorney to review the proposed language for a narrow exception to the city charter to allow commission support personnel and bring back proposed language.
Second.
All right, a motion and a second. Madam Clerk.
It's not related to the motion. Do you want to, I can speak after.
Okay, go ahead and hit your button again. Thank you. So I would ask that if you, we often will vote yes to move things forward, to have another discussion about it, sometimes with no intention of voting for it as it moves forward. If you think there's a chance you could vote to put this on a ballot, please, I invite you to vote yes on it. I will vote yes on it. But if you don't see your mind being changed going forward, then let's kill it today. And I'm not trying to kill it. I'm just saying, well, let's not spend a whole bunch of time working on something that we know we're not going to pass, because it does take 5 votes to move it forward. I support it. But if you are moving it forward to be polite, then it's probably not the kindest thing to do, I would say.
I think that's fair, Mr. Mayor. I will also say, even though it's my motion, if anyone, I concur with that statement. I agree with that statement. Yeah, it's a good point. I went back and forth on even making the motion, so here we are.
I see no further lights. All in favor, please say, Commissioner Book. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate you actually thinking that way too, and you saying that charter revision is a big deal, and putting things on the ballot is a big deal, so we need to reserve it for times that we know is our absolute most, probably our greatest needs for the city, and whatever we think those are. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Book. And let me say, I really like the collegiality of this commission and the fact that we are usually kind of there to say, yeah, let's move that forward, talk about it later. I ain't voting for it then, but it is, I like the collegiality of it, and I appreciate that. And I'm not trying to,
Butter us up.
yeah, but sometimes, I mean, something like this that will, that has to be a charter amendment, let's not go down that road if we're not going to go all the way down the road. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
All right, that fails with Commissioners Book, Walker, and Engel in dissent. By the way, for those watching at home, a tie vote is a no vote. It doesn't go forward with the tie vote. That's our policy. Commissioner Engel.
I was totally going to vote yes to something else.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Engel. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, I think I would like to have a motion for our office to review the job descriptions of the executive assistants.
All right, Commissioner Dr. Walker.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passed unanimously with Commissioner Chestnut absent. Commissioner Eastman.
I just want to say that I don't necessarily have a problem with the current job descriptions. This was genuinely a forward-looking like how do we go from a large city? And since you said you're going to be taking the comments back as to what you're looking at here, I think it's worth taking a look potentially at supporting more, well, maybe more constituent services, maybe more other things. But I think as it currently stands, we have, to Ms. Powell's point, many, and to Commissioner Book's point, many positions that need to get filled, and we're at capacity pretty much at the clerk's office. But if you want to take a look at that, that's perfectly fine with me. Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Eastman. Anything else on this item? All right, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, we're on to commission comment.
Anyone? Commissioner Duncan Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to remind everyone of the school board meeting that's happening tonight at 6 o'clock. And given everyone's fervor for the subject matter and how we all, I felt, had a really good, robust conversation with our colleagues on Monday night. For anybody who can be in attendance, I know I'm going to go, and I'm going to get there a little early because I have a feeling that the house may be packed. So just wanted to kind of remind you of that. And then the other is a personal note. My grandfather normally watches these meetings, so I want to say happy birthday to my grandfather, who will be 100 years old tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Mr. Collins
Happy
Duncan,
birthday.
I love you, and
That's
thank
why
you,
you're on your
sir.
best behavior.
Yes.
Your grandpa's watching.
Grandpa's watching. But no, it is a thrill and a privilege and an honor to not just be his granddaughter, but also to be at a point now where I get to care for him. He's been an incredible gentleman to me personally, and has also been an incredible person in this community. And I love him for his love, his life, his laughter, and his legacy. So happy birthday, Granddaddy. Love you.
That's why we run for these offices, so we can do that every now and then. I'm just saying. No, kidding. Totally kidding. Congratulations and happy birthday. Commissioner Book.
Thank you. One announcement, one thank you. Mr. Manager, I say thank you for meeting with the Gainesville Opportunity staff. That's clearly within your purview. I do support our ability in the city to figure out, not replace our existing full-time positions and stuff, but find ways that we broaden who we bring in as employees. And so thank you for that. The stalwart, we've talked about this. Miss Rosa B. Williams is, it's not a funeral. It's something else, and it's probably more celebratory than anything else. And her, the celebration types of things that they're going to do is this Saturday, 11 o'clock. I was looking for my own announcement here, but
I think it's at Lincoln Middle School.
11 o'clock, and the venue change for those is at Lincoln Middle School. I'll be out of state, but I would suspect that'll be a packed house. And this is a person in the community that did tremendous amounts of things and never leveraged her authority. Unbelievable what she did. So that's one of those really unique, and just like reaching 100 years is a real milestone for someone in the community. So I thought that was important to put out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Book. I certainly will be there on Saturday morning. Saturday afternoon, at least Commissioner Eastman and I will be at First Magnitude to present a key to the city to the whole band, Less Than Jake, internationally known ska punk band that consistently gives incredible credit to our community whenever they are elsewhere. And you know, the rich talent of musical history over many decades in this community is phenomenal, and I look forward to being able to recognize that in one more time with Les and Jake on Saturday. Go ahead, Commissioner Eastman.
Yeah, and then, well, I also just wanted to say, I think I saw recently our state representative Yvonne Henson gave her farewell address to the state in the state legislature. And I just wanted to give all of our thanks for her many years of service to our community as a state representative.
100%, and she's an alum of this dais as well. Former city commissioner, and appreciate everything going back many years. What she's been able to. The work she has done for this community. Commissioner Willits.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know when, we're talking about a special legislative session, so I don't know when would be the most appropriate time, but I think Representative Yvonne Henson deserves a proclamation for her representation of Gainesville in particular in the state legislature. She has always been willing to hear. She once voted something I didn't particularly care for, and I gave her a piece of my mind, and she listened and said, I really, this is why I thought, and I think, but she just kept the communication going. She's really been an advocate for the city, one of the best we could possibly have. So, yeah, we owe her some flowers. Thank you.
We will absolutely have, at an appropriate time, Yvonne Hayes Henson Day in the city of Gainesville, no question. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to echo the thanks to Representative Hinson. She recently hosted us when we were up in Tallahassee. Was very gracious, has always been a strong advocate for the city. She's still working. She filed an amendment today in the House, so she's still working on our behalf. And so definitely will be, my office would be happy to help with any coordination of celebration. So.
Very good, thank you. I will remind everyone, not that this is imminent, but it's important to remember the things that happen in the community, and particularly downtown, because of the actions of the city of Gainesville. You have to have noticed out front, City Hall Plaza is getting closer and closer to completion. In April, we should be at completion, and people are excited about that. Every day I help somebody peek around the fence there to get a good look at it, and people have been very, very positive about that renovation, and I really am looking forward to it. I enjoy visiting the city manager's office on the 4th floor to get a good look down at the bird's eye view of how it is evolving. Further, we have on April 13th, I believe, we'll break ground on the streetery and get moving on that, as we've talked about. Upcoming events that happen downtown, we have an ongoing spring market that happens Friday, Saturday, Sunday through the first weekend of May. As we squeeze every last bit of use out of the streetery as it currently exists before the new and improved streetery comes around. And beginning, I think, next Friday, it's not this Friday, but I think next Friday, it may be maybe going into April, I forget. Free Fridays begins on Bo Diddley Plaza for 26 weeks of free concerts, various kinds of free concerts, all different kinds of music. It's just not old guy classic rock. It's a little old guy classic rock, but it's also nearly anything you can imagine. There's all kinds of different music over that 26 week period. And I hope that when you come down and enjoy that, you will also grab a bite to eat at one of our existing longtime restaurants or one of our 5 or 6 new restaurants in downtown Gainesville. I'll see you in the other lights. Thank you all for your time and attention. We are adjourned.